In the beginning, God created the galaxy, and that's rather old. In a few billion years, man created the Galaxians, protecting the Earth from imaginary dive-bombing aliens. Then came Galactica, leading a ragtag fugitive fleet protecting mankind. And now, in the 21st century, we have Galaxias.
And Roland describes this as a super instrument because they've not simply given us access to the synths as standalone versions, but they've made it possible to create really complex patches combining up to 4 different synths. And although everything I've seen about it seems to concentrate on the Legendary series, if we scroll all the way down on the right hand side, we've got Xenology as well, so we've got access to all those thousands of sounds that you've got in the Roland Cloud. Let's just load those into layer 1 quickly. So as well as obviously having all the Xenology tones, as this is in the Roland Cloud Ultimate package, you've got access to the Jupiter, the Juno, the Juno 106, the JX-AP, the SH-101, the JD-800, which are the ones called the analog modeling behavior models, which are different to the ACB models, the analog circuit behavior ones that we've got over on the right-hand side here. So Juno 60, yeah, let's have that. Or a Jupiter 4, or a Jupiter 8, or an 808 even. Or maybe you want to go a little bit more Latin and get on a 727. Or some lo-fi TR-606. So yeah, as you can see on the right hand side, these are all the instruments you can choose. JD-800, D50, 106, 60, Jupiter 4, all these things, the JV-1080. Scroll down a little bit further, we've got these SRX expansion models. These are like the cards that went in the JV-1080 and the XV-5080. So you've just got absolutely tons of stuff here. Let's try this electric piano. Or something more acoustic. Yeah, I'm just showing you there that we're not tied to analog synths. We've got access to absolutely tons of stuff in here. And if you look here, you can see the System 1 is sort of greyed out, and that's because I've not got it installed in my system. So everything that you want to use, you need to install on your computer first, but it's all there on Roland Cloud. The joy of this is that we have 4 different layers and we can mix and match whatever we like. So you can create complex scenes like you can on the Fantom series without actually having to buy a Fantom. And I'll go into how it all works in a second, but just in case you're not really familiar with the Roland ACB models and how good they are. ACB is analog circuit behavior, and these things on the right-hand side are all Roland classic synths from the 80s and 90s, and they sound absolutely bang on. Here we have my lovely vintage Jupiter 4, and actually it's one of the main reasons I want to do this video, is because I've never put my Jupiter 4 up against the ACB in Roland Cloud. I've previously put my SH-101 up against the Fantom, did that a few weeks back when they came out with the new Fantom Upgrade expansion pack, and as you can hear in this, they are absolutely bang on. And I've done it before previously with the 106 and other things that I've got. This is my selection of, well, my own sort of hardware version of Galaxia, as it were. So big, keen fan of these Roland sounds. I've had them for years. Yeah, but bringing out the Jupiter 4 to give you a good idea of how it sounds compared to the software. So I've set up this really simple patch. It's just a nice way of showing if one synth's got the same character as another. Nothing's going to sound identical to a 40-year-old synth. Obviously, they've all had different lives. In the past, I've put the same keyboards up against each other, and they never sound identical, but you get the same character, the same sort of feel. So this is just the resonance cracked all the way up, cut-off frequency about halfway down, and you get these lovely little crackles and inharmonic things happening. So it's very similar sounding on the software, but let's just turn it into, I don't know, like a bass type tone or something like that. Let's take the resonance all the way down and then just have a little whoops. Sounds good, doesn't it? Sounds like it. Yeah, pretty good, that, isn't it? Okay, distortion on that one. It's got a little LED there to show you if it's distorting. These ACB models then, they're really close to the originals. Analog circuit behavior, it looks at what each individual part of the circuit does, and it creates the tones based on what the circuitry is rather than listening to the tone and then working back. It's just a really clever way of doing it. But you get, you know, super close things. Jupiter 4's got a really distinctive tone, and that's following it, so that's really nice. Just thought I'd show you that before I show you what the rest of it does, or why it's such a good thing that we've got this in the Galaxias if I come out of that. So what I've done here is, you know, it's nice to have the Jupiter 4. The Jupiter 4 is a nice instrument, but we can take it to places that we can't take the hardware in the software. So things like taking it from more than 4 voices, that's a no-brainer, really. It's nice, but what I've done here is I've added a second one, and if you put one to the left and one to the right, you just get a really nice, rich, thick tone. One is slightly detuned, just about 12 cents low, and the other is bang on, I think. Yeah, and we go to the mix section. You see, one's to the left, one's to the right. I've just muted these 2 others because we'll listen to those in a minute, but it gives you the opportunity just to have 2 Jupiter 4s playing, quite cool. Playing 5 notes in this chord. Can play with a filter on both of them. On the bottom here, we got these macros. If I go into edit those, we can see on this knob here, is it? Let's go to 9 to 16, because that's where my knobs are. This knob here is adjusting the low pass cutoff of both of the Jupiters. Wonderful. 2 Jupiter 4s. And looking at the Jupiter 4, if you don't know it, it's only got a single oscillator, so you can't do really complex patches on it, even though it sounds wonderful. So to get a second oscillator, let's put them both to the center. And then let's go into the keyboard edit. And let's just detune one of them by, I don't know, minus -5 semitones, then add an octave over here. So we're getting a difference of 7, of +7 effectively, and then we get So that's pretty much like a 2 oscillator Jupiter 4. Well, it is. Taking a look at the interface in a little bit more depth then, now you've seen what it is and what it can do. Started off in the Sounds tab, and this is effectively the browser. So they're the organ sounds I've got on the Jupiter 4. But let's clear this, shall we? Let's make a new scene so that we can start from fresh. So as we flick through each of the synths on the right, we can see what sounds are available for them. And packs that you've not installed yet are grayed out. But it's just a really nice way of being able to find a synth bass for the Jupiter 4, for example, bass 1. Or what have we got on the D50? Acid bass from a D50. And yet the packs that I haven't installed aren't shown there. So you can pick your sound, or you can go in and pick your instrument. Let's put a Juno 106 in there instead. And then you can edit your instrument however you like, exactly like you would on the ACB models in your DAW. Got all the various presets. Or just the interface itself. If you only want to see the interface, click on this button on the right. And there you go, and we can resize that if we want. Come back to the instrument view. Turn that into a Juno 60 maybe. So that's how you pick your instruments. So go to 2, maybe. Let's add another instrument. Let's add the 106 here then. Let's make it smaller so it fits back on that screen. And what we've got there is 2 synths playing. And we can see we've got 2 colours on the keys, orange and purple. And that's because we've got the 2 synths playing. Go to the mix. There's your 2 synths. We've got up to 4 of them, obviously. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we've got 2 different effects we can put on them. So these are like insert effects here. The effects over on the right-hand side. So let's go into the Juno, because this might be more obvious, and put a bit crusher on that. So just add that. And then we've got bit crusher there, or we've got the various presets that you've got in there. But then you can add a second effect. What should we stick on there? Let's put an EQ on it. It might be a little bit more obvious than the others. I like that big crusher effect. That's nice, that, isn't it? So 2 insert effects and then 2 send effects as well. Let's get rid of that there. Send effects are here, FX1 and FX2. So in each of those send effects has 2 effects. So you can start getting really crazy if you like, you know. What effect should we put on that? Should we put a delay on it? I'll load the feedback on. Let's come out of there. Just a delay. let's edit that down. So yeah, on the mix page, you've got your 4 layers. So you've got pan, you've got a basic filter on there as well, like a basic EQ. You can mute or solo. So it's a nice little mixer, and then we can center various outputs. If I go into my settings, they're the different outputs I've got on the Scala 18i8. So if we add some more, we can then send them to different outputs as well. So there's loads of flexibility in there, especially if you're using a mixer and you're doing something live and you want to do extra bits and bobs. Although, to be honest, there's so much happening within the mixer in this. I'm not quite sure what the point will be, unless you've got some special effects that you really want to use. But there's other nice little effects like the Juno 60 chorus, and then we've got the Xenology effects as well. So there's loads of stuff in there. But let's take all these off for now. To remove them, just click there to remove the effect. And then we've got a sequencer as well, which is actually really an arpeggiator. We've got presets here, and we've got different patterns, up, and down, etc. And then the rate, and we can store different ones in memory. So let's go back to the instrument. Let's do something like a SH101. Let's remove that 106, just so I'm not confusing myself. Remove instrument, back to the 101. Let's do a little electro bass, shall we? Oh, that's nice. But let's take that portamento off. Yeah, it's lovely that. Turn the arpeggiator on. And that brings me down to the key edit. So you could have the SH101 just playing between these octaves here. So let's just do that. Then the bottom and layer the top. And then let's go for a JX3P, shall we, on layer 2. And we've got a string sound there. Edit the keys. Let's reduce this down by an octave or something, shall we? So we're not playing it too high. It doesn't always sound that rough. Let's go back to the layers and take the bit crusher off, shall we? Let's just turn it off. In fact, remove it. Back into the key edit. So. Let's remove the bass key from the JX3P. So learn the lower key. So only playing there. Really basic stuff this, but I'm just showing you how it all works. We've got these knobs across the bottom. I think that's the last bit to look at really. If we go to edit those, let's go back into the instrument so we can see the instrument. In fact, let's change the instrument so we've got lots of knobs on it. Let's put a Juno 60 on. Let's assign some of the macros then. So hit edit on the bottom left, and we'll use macro 1. And I'll use this one on the Arturia. But for now, we'll just link. Let's link. Should we go to the VCF frequency? That's an obvious one to do. And now I'm going to forget that assignment that's already on. Wiggle a knob. And there we go. Now this knob can also modulate something on the SH101 if I wanted, like we did with the Jupiter 4s. So let's link the frequency on this as well. So now when I wiggle the knob, it's modulating the VCF on this as well, and then we can change the range of that, so it's not modulating it quite as much as it is on the others. For example, we can invert it. So as I go up, it goes down, while the Juno 60 is going up. That's quite interesting. We'll have a play with that in a minute, but we've got 8 destinations on each of the macros, and we've got 2 pages of these, so there are 16 macros altogether. If we open the scene I played earlier with the 2 Jupiters, that's not the one I meant, but that's quite nice. On the Jupiter 4, I'm modulating the envelopes with the sliders down here and things to do with the filters with the knobs at the top. And I think I'm changing the sub amount with this off the end and changing the waveform with this one. Make that a bit bigger so you can see it. There we go. And you'll notice that the Jupiter 4 ACB model has a sub. The real thing doesn't. Let's try inverting those filters, shall we? So let's invert the low pass cutoff of one of them. See what happens. Oh, that gives a really nice little stereo effect, doesn't it? And that brings me over quite nicely, actually, to these LFOs down at the bottom here. Each of these has its own LFO. So let's assign the LFO to that, shall we? Let's do I don't know, let's use a ramp and increase the depth. So, it's nice, that, isn't it? Just turn it down a bit from there. Yeah, really like that. Almost forgot about it. So I think I've covered pretty much everything there, haven't I? And that brings me back to that little intro track. On that, I'm using the TL909. Press play. SH2 is playing some bass. And my right hands are playing the stereo Jupiter 4s. If we go into key edit, just a nice way of showing up the keys are different colours as well. So layer 4 is green, and you can see yellow, purple and blue, and the keys down here, yellow, purple and blue. Not that you need that, but I thought it was just quite a nice little thing. Nice that. Here's this massive pad tone that I loaded earlier. So we've got a D50, 2 Jupiter 4s and a Jupiter 8. We go to the mix, let's just have a listen. Lovely that, isn't it? Let's take the Jupiter and the D50 out. So we're back to the stereo Jupiter. And then what we've got on the D50, we've got this nice resonant thing. If we come into the D50, you can edit this like you would with any of the other ACB models. Go to the all the other stuff that you've got on these ACB things. So there's my resonance there. Turn it up a little bit more. A lovely tone in itself, that, isn't it? And then the Jupiter 8. Again, another really lovely tone, but put them all together. And that's the fun of Galaxias. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, please think about subscribing, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon, all that sort of stuff. I've got patches, I've got samples, I've got tutorials, Patreon exclusive materials, and on the website, starskycar.com, the stuff you can buy, the stuff you can download for free. Do whatever else doesn't download the free stuff, but it's really nice if people buy things because it does really help to support the channel. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.